Mike Ceballos. I took Spanish in college, actually, so I should have that better. He is a lifelong learner. One of the things that impressed me most about his website was on the left side menu, kind of, where he gives bits and pieces about his bio. He starts with his family. Now, how often do we have candidates who start with the most important thing in their lives, and that's their family? I was very impressed. Thanks for doing that. He's got a master's degree in business administration from the University of Colorado, a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration from Northern Arizona University, and he's currently working on his doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Wyoming. He retired as Q West Communication President for Wyoming in 2011 after a 30-year career in telecommunications. While president of Quest, he served as Wyoming's business representative at a national education forum. He also has served on several educational advisory boards, including the UW College Business Advisory Board, Wyoming National Teacher Certification Advisory Board, and McRail International. And if any of you are out there are teachers, you recognize that as an educational research laboratory. He is a stable, proven leader. Mike's business career began in 1980. He served as Quest's Director of Regulatory Relations upon moving to Wyoming, and then as the company's Wyoming State President from 1997 to 2011, when he retired. As State President, Mike effectively managed large teams of employees, faithfully discharged multi-million-dollar budgets, carefully oversaw legislative, regulatory, and community affairs. Doesn't that sound different than what we have now? Together, the principles Mike stood for at Quest and his resulting accomplishments, combined with his educational leadership skills, create a uniquely qualified candidate for state superintendent. Mike will bring respect and stability to the now paralyzed Department of Education in Wyoming. Mike's family consists of his wife Addie, who's with him here today, and 2 children, son Kelly and daughter Samantha. He says that through them he has learned to be a better listener, something he works on every day. Please welcome the next Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mike Ceballos.
The problem with doing this is having to follow Pete, because I'm slow but trainable, so I'll keep working. But the theme of leadership truly is, I think, the one that we can carry through all of this. Now, part of the thing I'd like to do is, because I'm still not nearly as well known as Pete, because when I wanted to play football, I was 95 pounds in Winslow, Arizona, and they made me a pulling guard. So clearly, that was a short career. I didn't get to do that very long. So I had to work on a lot of other things. But let me tell you a little bit about where I'm going with all of this and some of the questions. The questions I'm really getting asked about are not being an educator, and how can you be state superintendent of public instruction if you haven't been a classroom teacher. I think that's one that we've got to talk about. And for this crowd too, because everybody is confused, the conversation I've had is, well, Mike, you were president of Quest, and you were chairman of the Business Alliance that everybody knows here, and you were president of the Taxpayers Association. But I didn't know you were a Democrat. So I mean, that's so somehow none of those things would work out to be a Democrat. Somehow we couldn't be presidents of a corporation. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to really start having that conversation, that one of the things we need to do in this state is really start looking at people for what they bring and listen. And all of us are better served by that. When I first came here, Addie really said, okay, you're going to be the lobbyist for Quest in Wyoming? Don't you think you're going to have a little bit of a different perspective there? And that was really good. And she called it a particular name that I could possibly be. But so we worked through that. And so what I really had to do was understand that one of the things that I was going to have to do to be successful was listen. If I could really sit down, understand what legislators were bringing to me, what issues they had, the problems that we needed to address, and more importantly in communities. Because the big piece I got to work on at one time back in '97, we had this thing called fiber fever. And everybody was worried about there's not enough fiber. And it wasn't, I couldn't tell them about getting more fiber in their diet. I couldn't joke them out of it. We had to work through the problems, and every community had a problem. I had communities that believed that we didn't have fiber and that we did. And what I really found out after a while is I had to get to a point where it wasn't an argument. It was to really say, my job is to help people understand. And the better they can understand and the more they can believe what I'm saying, then we can arrive at common goals. We can get to the same place. And that was really the story of my success with Quest. And we passed lots of laws and changes, but I think it was through finding coalitions. So when folks say, well, how can you be successful, as a Democrat in this job, I gotta say, because I've been successful for 20 years doing it, and it was a Democrat that whole time. We can work together, and that has been a theme, and I really think, again, as Pete talks about, it is a leadership theme. So let me tell you just a little bit, again, in this whole process, when I came in '95, there was an opportunity to bid to bring broadband to all of the schools, and it was called the Wyoming Equality Network. so at any rate, so when we did that, we won the bid, and at that time, Governor Geringer was in office, and he said, Mike, we really need business more involved in education. You talk a lot about it, and mostly it's complaining about how much money we're spending. But what we really want to do is figure out how to work it better. So that is where the governor invited me and then Judy Catchpole to go to a forum that IBM was putting on. And that was kind of my second real walk into education. But really at that point in time, there weren't that many businesses that really had the time to devote to it. So as a result, all the superintendents, all the governors since I've been here have asked me to serve on those places. So I'm going to have to be working with this because my opponent is a teacher. But I keep saying, but about the time you started teaching, when you went into the workforce, Governor Geringer was asking me to get involved with policy at a pretty high level. So I think I've had a little practice in this. Now, maybe not as much as being a teacher, and I don't want to minimize this because a classroom teacher is who I need to listen to. But this job isn't really, if you're looking at the qualifications and what's happened over the last few lost years here, the problem has been with how do you work with folks. First of all, with the staff. My job was to work with what we called subject matter experts. And when I first came to work, a president of a company was really the smartest person in the room. They had all of the knowledge and they could answer all of your questions. And most of the time you ought to do what they told you to do. What you started to realize after a while, that nobody can be that smart. And when people ask, when are you the smartest guy in the room's empty. So I got to work on it. But I think what I've been able to do over those years is to figure out a way that really a good leader figures out how to find and keep those really good leaders in a group, and then listen to them, work with them and understand. And we'll have to reestablish in the department this idea that I don't mind if you have a different opinion than me and you want to express it. That would be actually a good thing and help me work through it. Now, do we need to be civil in our discussions? We absolutely need to do. And that's something that this group knows so much about. That's why we are who we are. And as we work through this, when I really understand this part of the process is to tell those folks, I'm really looking forward to this job because you're going to tell me what to do. It's not going to be the other way around. Now, we'll set standards about where we'd like to go, and part of the standards for me is we have to expect the highest level possible from our students. When I look at my doctorate degree, and this is where Governor Friedenthal told me, he said, people don't want to know how smart you are. They want to know, will you listen to them? Do you understand what they're saying? And can they believe and trust in you? But I can tell you that as I look at education, our kids do today, our students today, need to know more than they've ever in the past. And it's because the world's a very competitive place. And even our Wyoming jobs, we have competition for our students from outside. And we all want to retain our students here. And in the next few years, we've got a lot of old people like me that are going to be retiring. And they're going to have opportunities for new jobs. And we want our sons and daughters, our grandsons, our neighbors to be the best qualified candidate for those jobs. And to do that, that means we're going to have to expect a lot. So when we talk about those standards that have been Common Core, we have to start dissecting that for our publics. Because at first, when this happened, I would go into meetings where Cindy really had folks there talking about the Common Core. And when I started to realize, I heard the same 7 speeches. There were just different people giving them. So I thought, oh, I know how to fix this. I'll get 10 people, and they'll get the other side. And what I really realized is that's not what's going to solve it. What's going to solve it is when we really all start talking about what it is and what it isn't. And to be really honest, and again, it goes back to what I started with. When you can tell people what the situation is in a way that is believable with facts that they can check, then all of a sudden they start thinking the same way, and in most cases you come up to the same conclusion. So where I would be with all of this is just to go back and say, I think that's our work that we've got to do. And it's going to be hard because there are so many easy ways to blame things on government today. And we all have times where we do get mad at government. And again, as president of a company, I did that a lot too. But you do realize that you can work it through. So part of all of this then is I do think I've got the background in education. I've got the experience to manage a very complex department. And I've got the great ability and desire to work with a governor that wants to do well. The last time we really worked this well, in my estimation, was with Judy and Jim. But it's because they worked together. They really had a good relationship. They believed in each other, and a team always does a better job when they can do that. So there's real great opportunities for this, but we've got to get there. I've also got to tell you that just down in my heart, beyond all of this, of a little reason why it's so important for me is my granddad was a teacher, my mom was a teacher, my sister's a teacher still today. But where it started for me is my dad, when he was getting ready to go to kindergarten, had a really heavy accent. So before we had ELL, that's what he was. I mean, he learned English as a second language. And Dad went to kindergarten, had a terrible accent, and essentially the teachers there, his teachers said, you're just not ready, you're not teachable, go home. And so he went home. But my grandparents said, education is the most important thing for us to be successful. And that theme they took back with him, they worked on his thing. And that same group of teachers, it was at Winslow High School, the same high school I went to, took him back in, worked through, saw the potential in him. And he was the first in his family to graduate as a college graduate. And his 13 brothers and sisters, many followed in his step. And when you look at what education did for him, how can you not be moved to want to do that for all of our students? No matter where they come, what party they are, what faith, what race, what creed, you know how important education is. And it's been there for my family on a regular basis, and I'd love to have that be there for all of our kids, because what we'd love them to do, whether we could get them to stay here, and I'm working really hard on our son. So, trying to say, and my really claim to fame with UW is that Kelly just graduated from UW physical in kinesiology, which I don't even know how to spell, but he's trying to get to physical therapy school. But the last 4 years, he has the same kind of celebrity as Pete, because he was Pistol Pete. So I mean, that's if I could get Pistol Pete to go with me, then this election would be locked up, and we could go home. But since I can't carry that with me, what I've got to tell you is, again, we love that our son has an opportunity to come back and practice and do something and be with us. But what's most important that I would close with is that as I looked at the statistics, and I'm that business nerd, always trying to figure out how do you get the market, how do you get the sales that we need, how do we make the numbers. I've been talking to people, and I'll bet Pete's got the same stories. There is a huge number of folks that just say, you know what, there's just not Democrats to vote for. So I've registered as Republican. And we got to get more Democrats for them to vote for. That would help start solving that problem. But there is a huge number of people out there. And why am I telling you that? Because it starts to close the gap. When you start to look at who do you have to win, there's people out there. There's a second group that's really sad because what they're saying is, I can't be a Democrat because it hurts my business. And again, you got to go back and say that shouldn't be that way. We need to figure out how to, for all of us to be here and not have that problem. But it's a second group. So I think the numbers are a lot closer than we would say. But what that means is you make a difference. And look what happened in our primary election. 120,000 people voted. And what happened with the races that were lost? I think there's a set of people that lost those races that may not participate as much as they can. So what does it mean even more today in this race when Democrats vote? Because only 20,000 voted in this last primary. If we turn out the Democrats, if we talk to those folks that really are persuadable, and then work with those Republicans in the middle, the numbers are there. This isn't something that we have to lose, but what it tells you is how important you are in getting that word out. And I would tell you, don't ask them to vote for me because I'm a Democrat or a Republican. Ask them to vote for me because they know a little bit about me, they think I have the right ideas, and that's what makes a good elected official, is somebody that you know you will listen to you, understand what you're going to say, and you can trust will do what they said they're going to do. I truly appreciate everything. As with Pete, we've got lots of work to do, and I'm going out to all 48 school districts. I've got a third done. So we've, in the first 2.5 weeks we got there, and it's been great. I'd love to talk to you about the Common Core. They're telling me that they're all teaching to it. It's not the other way, and most of them are teaching the science standard. So you're behind. Board of Education's got to catch up because they're going to do it anyway. So I really do want to tell you, I am, what I said at first, slow but trainable. So please help me. I'd really love to get there. Thanks.